Podcasts are pretty common. So what makes the Uncommon podcast uncommon? Well, it's all in our name. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and we at Uncommon Sports Group understand the unique pressures and temptations that come with a career in the sport industry. We provide uncommon training that helps you successfully navigate common challenges. Hit the follow button on this podcast. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Check out our website and become uncommon. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Uncommon Podcast. I'm your host, Noah Weiss, and I'm back with my brother, Seth Ralston, for another edition of Coffee Conversations, in which our staff will talk about some hot topics in the culture, as well as answering questions from our members. Seth, how are you?
I'm good, man. It's good to be back.
Yeah, round two. Let's get it. And Seth, one of our audience questions this week was, what impact has USG had on your personal and professional life? So I think we should definitely, to answer that question, hit on the NYC Impact Weekend, which happened about 2 weeks ago, to really answer this. So just for you guys that don't know, a few weeks back, we traveled to the Big Apple with 11 of our Academy participants for one of our Impact Weekends. So Seth, talk to our listeners about what exactly happens on these Impact Weekends, what's the purpose of them, and then what was the impact of these weekends on our participants.
Yeah, for sure. So for those that don't know, we have our USG Academy where students go through an 8-week training. We're really training them up how to live a life called to Christ, both professionally and spiritually. So navigating those two areas of their life. These Impact Weekends, we do 4 a year, every quarter. And it's really bringing people together to put into action what they learned through the academy. So we've done several so far in the past year and a half. And we had an opportunity to go to New York City. As you mentioned, 11 people came together. We had just an awesome group. We stayed right in the heart of New York City, right off of Times Square. Cool. And the things we do on the weekend, so we start Friday afternoon and just kind of dive into it. Spend really a ton of time connecting, building relationships. Everything we do is relationship focused, and so allowing our students to connect. We did a social event that night where we had visitors from local sports teams. We had a group from St. John's and people within Madison Square Garden, and just an awesome group gathered together. And then the action piece of it, we really train our students to live missionally. So we focus on what it looks like to live called and to glorifying God. And so we did outreach. So we went through Central Park actually, and so every Impact Weekend we do, we find an opportunity to go out and serve, walk around, pray for people, talk to people. And so it was just a huge experience for these students to get out of their comfort zones. That's really what it's about.
Absolutely.
God calls us to be missional. And so usually the first step of that is just to get uncomfortable, to do something that you're not used to. And so it was really, for me, it was really impactful to see our students step up to the challenge, to go out and talk to people, to pray for people, to even share their faith with people.
Super cool.
And then, other than that, we do some professional development. We got to hear from Andy Birdsong, who is a strong believer, works for the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah. And then we got to tour Madison Square Garden, which was kind of a cool way to wrap up the weekend.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love these weekends. I think it's super unique for the young professionals because it does put you out of your comfort zone in a spiritual sense. You think about just the rarity of an opportunity to not only be trained on how to share your faith, but actually go out and do it, right? Yeah. In New York City. It's I remember my first weekend trip was to Atlanta almost a year ago now. And it was my first week on staff. I was super nervous, but it was a cool opportunity. But we did outreach in downtown Atlanta, and it was even a little intimidating for me. Coming on staff, I'm like leading the group, like, man, I don't really know what I'm doing, right? But it was cool. and it put me out of my comfort zone. And we had some great conversations. And every time I think I do it, I feel like I get more comfortable, and practice makes perfect. So I think it really does put you out of your comfort zone, but it does teach you, what does it look like to share my faith, to, walk up to somebody and, hey, can I help you with I got a bag with some stuff. Like, I want to share with my faith with you. Like, the more you do it, the better you get at it. So I think it really is, something that is unique. You're not going to find an experience like that anywhere else. Not to pat USG on the back, but it is something that I think is very unique and a good challenge. And even just, I've been blown away. Some of the students I think are better at it than me. Like, sure. I'm out there, I'm like, man, that's great. I didn't even think about it. That conversation starter, the way they dove into that conversation. And even Nick Fairley, one of the students we had in New York, he was, awesome kid, but he really stepped out and was living on mission the entire weekend. Mm-hmm. It was incredible. And I'd love to hear, Seth. I know he shared a story with you about kind of an interaction he had in Times Square. I'd love to hear and just what happened there.
Yeah, we were wrapping up our Friday night, heading back to the hotel, kind of diving into our last session. I noticed Nick wasn't in the room, and so he showed up like 20 minutes late, and so we kind of, checked in with what was up. And he just shared that he had been praying for an opportunity that night to share his faith. And on the way back in Times Square, a guy came up to him and just confronted him, had a conversation, and immediately the conversation jumped to faith, and he got to share the gospel with him and pray with the guy. And,
so cool.
Worth being late for the last session, definitely.
Absolutely.
So it was really cool to hear him, just the testimony he had of just being intentional and looking for that opportunity.
Yeah, he even mentioned too, I thought it was so unique just to hear how he worded it, but that he was walking through Times Square and felt bad for the people because they were so lost. And I'm like, man, when I was walking through there, I was like, I want to get out of here. Like, this is like too much for me to even handle. So I think that mindset of just really thinking through, hey man, like there are a lot of lost people here. Can I pray to ask God to bring me one lost sheep that's prepared to hear the gospel? And the fact that it actually happened, it shows the Lord's faithfulness, but shows Nick's as well of just desiring to share. So I think going back to the weekend portion of it, it is a very uncomfortable thing sometimes to share your faith in that way. But we really want our students, our young professionals, our GAs, the whole crew that's on mission with us as a ministry. We want you guys to live called to the Great Commission. We'll talk more about that later in the episode, but it's a very serious calling as a believer, and I think there's so much power in doing that. And I think what we offer as a ministry is the tools to be able to do that, which I think is special. So that's what I would say is a huge part of the Impact Weekend, and definitely was cool to see Nick and his faithfulness there.
Yeah. Everything we do, this, but everything we do as an organization, it's not, we create really cool experiences and opportunities, but everything we teach and are about are things that you can do every day. So that's, the Impact Weekend specific, like, yes, we structured a outreach event, we structured time to share meals together, but everything we do, you can do back home on campus in your community. And so, that mission focus, being intentional, being called to the Great Commission is something that it's not just a weekend event or a short-term mission trip. It's a lifestyle. Yeah, no, it is. And even a quick plug, I know we use the impact bags as we go out on those outreach events, and we put mask, deodorant, dental kit, a granola bar, a little prayer card, a mini study Bible. You can request one of those boxes, and you can actually do a very copycat version of what we do on the outreach on the weekends in your campus or with your organization or with your friends or with your church. So quick plug there. If you definitely enjoyed that, then request a free impact box. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Well, I'd love to bring in one of our USG members and board members, Jalen Stone. Jalen is an assistant equipment manager at the University of Michigan, and he has been doing a really cool initiative over the past few years. He's doing it this year, in which he raises funds in honor of his late friend, John Michael Schultz, to offer a scholarship for one of our USG mission trips overseas. So Jalen, welcome, and I'd love if you don't mind sharing just a little bit of what impact did USG have on you and your desire to live mission-focused.
Yeah, first of all, Noah and Seth, thank you for having me on today and letting me share a little bit of my background and my story with USG and to talk about my friend John Michael. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, listening to you guys talk about the Impact Weekend in New York, that was super uplifting.
Yeah.
To hear the story of Nick in Times Square, that is awesome, and something that Seth said early on in the conversation there that really stuck with me was everything that you guys do on these Impact Weekends is relationship driven, and one of the things that being a part of the USG Academy and being a part of the organization in general has really helped me see over the last few years is for myself personally breaking down this idea of religion and being more relationship based and relationship based with between myself and Christ and myself with others. And so when Seth said that everything is relationship driven, that really struck home with me there. So I appreciate that, guys. And in regards to how USG and my experience with the academy and with the organization has kind of challenged me and helped me kind of be mission focused. As I was kind of preparing for this conversation today, I went back, Seth, and broke out my my notebook and my purpose-driven life book from the training that I did a little over a year and a half ago, and just kind of looking through that and some notes I had made. And on day 31 of the training, the chapter of the PDL that day is titled "Understanding Your Shape," and the verse of the day for day 31 in the book there is 1 Peter chapter 4 verse 10 that says, "Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms." So for me, I went through the training program. I believe we started the first week of December 2020.
Yep.
And kind of went into January and February of 21. And I remember Christmas 2020. I was at my mother-in-law's in Chicago going through the training. And I remember getting to this week and the day 31, the understanding your shape, and really being kind of challenged through the process, through the training program of using different gifts and opportunities that God has blessed me with to further his kingdom and to use those gifts to steward God's kingdom here on earth. And so I began praying, well, God, what are some of these gifts that I can use? How can I use them? And I began thinking, what do I spend a lot of my free time doing? And one thing I enjoy doing is running. I enjoy running for many reasons. Let's for go. The mental challenge it is, for the physical challenge it is. I just really enjoy running. And got to thinking, I was like, well, I run a lot, so I'm spending a lot of time physically exercising in this way. How, what can I do to use that to further God's kingdom and to be mission focused? And I remember, Seth, I don't know if you recall, but I think I sent you and James Morrison a text message over at Christmas break telling you guys this idea that I had that God had put on my heart that I'd been praying about. And this idea was to go on a long distance run to raise money for the mission trips through USG. But I wanted it to be bigger than that. I wanted to have purpose. And the thing that God kept putting on my heart was childhood friend of mine named John Michael Schultz. And so I kind of segue into telling John Michael's story a little bit. So if you guys can't tell from my accent, I am not from Michigan. I am not from Minnesota. Definitely not from the Midwest. I was born and raised in Tishomingo, Mississippi, a small town in northeast Mississippi. And I went to church at Dennis United Methodist Church. We started going to church when I think it was 8 years old. And one of the first individuals I met when my family and I started going to church there was John Michael Schultz. John Michael was a couple years older than me. So we played Little League sports against each other, junior high sports against each other. grew up going to Sunday school and church together, played high school football together. And John Michael had a spirit of service. He served God. He loved God. He loved serving others. And John was a great example of living on mission. John, in high school and early college years, went on several mission trips through different organizations around the state of Mississippi and through our church. And I always looked up to John. He was like I said, he was a couple years older than me. Going to Sunday school together, playing high school sports together. He was always a positive example of what it looked like to serve others. And we were in college. I believe it was fall 2012. John was diagnosed with cancer and battled on and off, went into remission a couple times, I believe. But eventually lost his battle with cancer in August of 2016. And I think back of watching John Michael and his family and how they handled that very tumultuous time in their lives, very difficult time in their lives. And we handled it with such grace and humility. And I remember John just constantly looking for ways to honor God. And at our childhood church there in Dennis, there is a new building they built in the last couple of years. The building is named after John Michael. And in the back of the sanctuary there in the church, above the door, it's painted something that John always used to tell everybody was, leave this place knowing you've done all you could do. And there's no doubt in my mind that when Jesus called John to be home with him, that John left this earth knowing he'd done all he could do. And that example of the way he lived his life has just always stuck with me, and it's always been in the back of my mind. And so when I reached out to Seth about this idea I had, I knew I wanted to do this in honor and memory of John. And so last June, I went on a run here in Ann Arbor, Michigan. My goal was to run anywhere between 26 and 30 miles that day. I ended up running 27 miles. And what we did was we had individuals pledge, whether it be $1 a mile, $5 a mile, whatever they felt led to pledge or donate to sponsor each mile that I ran. I ended up running 27 miles. And awesome. We ended up raising, I believe, right at $3,000. And Seth can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that is pretty close to the amount that it costs to fund one of these mission trips that we send our students on to Kenya this summer. Correct, Seth?
Yeah.
And so, what was amazing for me seeing as these donations came in last year was all the different kinds of people from different walks of life that were given. A lot of family, a lot of friends, a lot of people from the church that we grew up going to, but then a lot of people that I have, met over the years through my career, former coaches I've worked with, current coaches I work with, former athletes. I was really blown away by all the different individuals from different walks of life, different backgrounds that gave to this cause and helped fund this trip last summer. And I was really blown away with that, and I'm excited that we're going to be doing it again this year. I will be going on a run a little over, I think, 5 weeks from now, June 4th. I will be going on this run. So we are in the process of fundraising for this on my own social media pages. There's several different links to give through the Clover Give app for USG if you want to donate, and you can scan the QR code there. But I'm just very grateful for the opportunity that you guys at USG have allowed me over the last couple of years to honor and remember my friend in this way. And I'm very grateful and blessed for his family's blessing, his mother Renee, and his father, Randy, and his sister, Jessica, as well. I'm very grateful for their blessing to be able to honor and remember John in this way. And just like I said earlier, he was just so mission minded in the way he lived his life and the way he served God and served others. And just want to continue to remember him and honor him in that way.
Yeah, Jalen, I appreciate you sharing. I think it is, so incredible just to even hear I think it's so unique, right? You think of, you enjoy running, you want to use your time wisely, and you turn that into a way to really impact the gospel, right? Impact the kingdom of God. So if you want to take part in what Jalen's doing, we'll have the link to donate below this podcast, so make sure you click that. But Jalen, that's awesome, brother. And we appreciate you sharing, most definitely. I think, too, for our listeners, right, there's really two ways to send, really to be a part of sending the gospel around the world. And you can be the one that goes and the one that is on the mission trip or whatever that is. Or you can be the one that actually funds or takes part in helping that individual go. In Philippians chapter 4, I think it is, Paul really unpacks his thankfulness for the Philippians because they equipped him with the goods he needed. I'm not sure what those goods were, probably food, water, whatever it might be. And he actually says that you have taken part in the sharing of this gospel that I have been given the responsibility of sharing. So if you are like, man, I'm too busy to go on a mission trip, well, there's tons of ways to fund, to support, to help, allow other missionaries and people that want to serve overseas or even in the States to be able to do that. So I think this initiative that Jalen has is one way, but there's tons of other ways. And I think those are both equally important as the ones that actually go and are called to be sent and the ones that prepare the senders to go and live out what they're called to do.
Yeah, that's good.
Absolutely. Well, Seth, you and I are headed to Kenya in a few weeks with a group of our USG members. We actually do a mission trip or two every year. It's been one the past few years due to some, obviously, COVID issues and whatnot. So we've been doing one as of late. But, Seth, you have a lot of mission trip experience, a lot of time spent overseas. You even spent a year in Turkey as a missionary, which is, I think, incredible. So talk to us, just kind of your experience and the impact that mission trips have had on your walk with Christ and why you feel so called to international missions.
Yeah, I think it goes back to being uncomfortable. I think so. My year in Turkey, that was coming off a year that I was director of basketball operations, and honestly was living a pretty comfortable life. And God really got a hold of my heart, and I knew I had to do something. Looking back now, I had no clue what that looked like, right. But as we talk about living missionally, I knew I needed to do something, and so I accepted that call. I said yes, and kind of opened the opportunity for whatever the Lord led, and ended up overseas. As you mentioned, I think we all play a part in global missions in
Absolutely.
The Lord's heart for the world. And so whether we're going, we're sending, we're praying, we're investing, whatever it may be, we play a part. And so, for me, I got to spend a year over there. And then, these short-term trips are honestly really uncomfortable. It's what we're about as far as sending students overseas. It's similar to the Impact Weekend, but really next level. I think for us, we as American Christians, we can really think like, oh, this Bible is talking to us as Americans, or this Bible, it's speaking directly to our culture, but it's not. It's a book written by God for the world, and so that's good. I think when it comes to missions, living missionally, like being able to step out of our comfort zones here in America, and to step into a place like Nairobi, Kenya, that is very very poor country, to interact with people you would never interact with before, or do things you would never do. We walk around in the slums and share our faith and pray with people and do sports camps with kids who live off $1 a day. It's just an eye-opening experience. And so really excited. This is my third time going back. The second trip with USG, and we had an awesome time last year, and I'm really looking forward to the group this year. We have a coaches clinic. We're going to have over 75 local coaches come and learn from us, interact with them for 2 days. We're going to run a sports camp for a week with over 200 kids at a local school. And we're going to get to go into the churches and preach. We're going to do a radio show. All kinds of cool opportunities for us.
Absolutely, Seth. And I do think your point as well of we can get caught up in American Christianity, which isn't not really our fault. We live here and we kind of just get stuck in it. But man, it's a big world out there, right? It's a big world, and God calls all nations to follow him. And so I think that's the beauty of the gospel, is it's not just for the United States, which we're very used to. And for me, it's going to be very interesting. I've never left the country outside of going to a few resorts in Mexico and the Caribbean. So it's going to be a unique challenge, but I'm excited for it. I think going back to the American Christianity point, the things that we zone in on as believers here are, I think, kind of the first world problems, right? Like anxiety, and not to down anxiety. I understand sexual purity, again, important, but there's issues in these countries that go far beyond these base level issues that we find to be like massively important.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, sometimes it's life or death over there. I mean, if you're a Middle Eastern Christian, like it literally is life or death to believe. So I think it'll be a really good perspective builder. And I think for our young professionals, right, to step out of the sports world for a minute. I mean, just for kind of a picture of how impactful these trips are, this ministry was started based on Drew Bowe's experience on a mission trip overseas, right?
Totally.
I doubt he would start managers on a mission without his mission trip that he had while he was at Virginia Tech. So I think the impact that it can have on your walk with Christ is crazy. I mean, obviously for you, it's done amazing things, Seth. So yeah, definitely. I think with this mission focused topic we're having today, I think just it can be a big step of faithfulness. So, and like I said earlier too, right? There's two ways to take part in that global missions aspect. There's supporting and funding. And then there's obviously the ones that actually go and do it. And another plug for USG, right? The Clean Out for a Cause program is what funds everything we do. So if you're listening and you're like, how can I help? How can I take part in? I want to be the one that prepares the people that are called to be sent. Well, Clean Out for a Cause is an easy way to do that. Yeah. We have a website, cleanout.org. You can donate, use your excess sports equipment that you have laying around to our store, in which we obviously turn and sell those items, and that funds everything we do. We're a nonprofit, so it all goes back into the organization. So it's just a quick plug there. If you're feeling like you want to take part in this idea of being mission focused, that's one way to do so.
Yeah,
most definitely. So Seth, we're going to close with our listener Q&A. One thing we're going to be doing every episode of Coffee Conversation is taking your questions via Instagram, DM or message, and we will answer them here on the show. So we have two that we're going to talk through today, Seth. The first I'm excited about, and it is, how often should I read my Bible? So Seth, start us off. How often should we as Christians be reading our Bibles?
Yeah, I mean, I think, how often should you eat food? How often should you drink water? You would say every day. So,
yeah,
the Bible is the Word of God, and should be the guide of our life. This is when we wake up, when we go to sleep. This should be first and foremost in our mind. And so, now, how often do we do it? Probably not that frequent, but I think how often we should be in the Word every day, even if it's reading a psalm for 5 minutes, or reading a whole book in a whole afternoon. I think the Lord wants to speak to us, and the only way he's going to do that is if we're in the Word. So that would be my answer. Yeah,
I mean, I totally agree. I think I think coming down to everything from a spiritual perspective, you have to look at the heart of why you do things. And I think there can be sort of a habitual routine we get in where it's so, we're not actually doing these things like prayer and church and study of the Word because we want to build our relationship with God. It's just kind of built into our schedule. So I agree with you 100%. I think for the listener, if you already are in the Word daily, take a look at your heart. Why? Yeah. And if you're not in the Word daily, take a look at your heart and say why. I think we can answer both of those questions pretty honestly, of like, man, maybe I'm just doing it because it's so ritualistic for me. I'm not actually building a relationship with God. And if you're not doing enough, why? Is there not a hunger for God? If there's not, then why? And that's not to condemn anybody. I think we all go through seasons of, man, I really have not been in the Word. And it can be a tough season, but I think we need to ask ourselves why, and then dig deep to the root. And I also want to share a verse too. Titus is a really good letter that Paul wrote. It's in chapter 1, verse 9. I think he gives tremendous insight to why we should be in the Word. It says, holding to the faithful message as taught, so that he will be able both to encourage with sound teaching and to refute those who contradict it. And I think as believers, we need to have discernment in what God's Word teaches us I hear people ask me all the time, what is God's will for my life? I'm trying to figure it out. I've been praying through it. You can find God's will for your life right here in these pages. And I think that's the beauty of God's word, is it helps you discern between sound teaching and poor teaching and be able to contradict things that go against God's word for your life. So obviously, yes, be in the word daily, but do it with the heart condition of getting to know God better, learning who he is. God does not speak to you he can, but he doesn't often speak to you in visions or dreams or a booming voice or a cloud. I mean, it is through his word that you learn who the living God is.
Yeah.
And so take advantage of it. I think there's something to note too, right? And in a lot of countries, especially in the Middle East, there is zero access to the Bible in the church. I was watching a video, David Platt, obviously a pastor that's pretty popular, but he has a whole, I don't know if it's a trend or a company organization called Radical, in which they really focus on like these international missions to tough, unreached areas. And he had a video on IG that I thought was so cool. He was sharing about a church in Afghanistan. It's kind of an underground church. They can't have buildings, or it's really just super low key. And they hide their Bible in a cave under 5 rocks. They like dig it down deep and they hide it there. And once a week when they meet, one of the elders of this underground church goes out to this cave like middle of the night, gets the Bible, tucks it in his coat, walks it back, and then they like silently almost whisper the word of God together for hours. And I was like, man, like that's so cool. That they love God's word that much, but man, the risks they have to take and the lengths they have to go to be able to have God's word at their fingertips. Like, man, I'm taking it for granted. It's on my bedside, right? Every night I got 2 Bibles on my bedside. Yeah. And man, if I'm not reading it, it comes down to my heart. So I think the question's a great one. And I think to your point, daily. And I think, really to what I said, I mean, the heart condition of it is key. Yeah. So definitely. And our last question, Seth, this is a good one. Might take a while to answer, but what is the biggest lesson God has taught you so far this year?
That's a big question. I think kind of what I've been chewing on is just going back to our, importance of Scripture. I think in the world we live in, I mean, we're seeing it right now with some laws changing. Just the need for truth, and so I think for me, it's I think God's really been challenging my doctrine, my what do I believe, why do I believe it, and just I think the lesson is the importance of being in the Word, knowing what we believe, because that's huge. The scripture of building your house on the rock, because if it's not, man, your faith is going to crumble. Absolutely. When there's resistance, when there's hate, if you're not on the rock, then you can fall quickly. And so just really being rooted in what I believe, and who Jesus is, and has been probably the biggest lesson so far this year. Yeah.
I mean, Seth, that's awesome. And I think too, there is such a need for truth, for the realities of who Jesus is and what he's calling people to be and to follow him, right? I think there's a lot going on. I mean, this week there's been so much in the news, right, with the whole Roe versus Wade stuff going on. And obviously, we as Christians have opinions on things, but I think what I've been kind of, to your point, right, is understanding, and over the years of learning from experience, that it will never be your opinion that changes somebody, but the truth of Jesus Christ that'll change people's hearts to understand right from wrong and good from bad. And so I think the encouragement, and I think to what you were saying, right, like just share Jesus with people, share the gospel. I mean, people are hurting in this world. I mean, I think I've seen that too. Like a lot of people are just straight up hurting and they don't have a whole lot of answers. So we need to share this good news. And I think we need to really focus on that above all things, and then let the cards fall as they may.
For sure.
I think it's an awesome takeaway, Seth. It's huge. I think for me, man, this might be kind of a grim one, but it's been really good for me. But I think I've been realizing how unimportant I am as a human being. Important to God, but in terms of the mass quantity of people in this world, my life isn't exactly as important as I make it in my mind. And I think what really is pushed me to really think through that is I've just seen a lot of young people die this year. And I know that's tough, and I don't want to obviously put a damper on somebody's day, but even just my brother has a friend in college, and I won't bring up names or anything, but has a friend in college who had a brother who was hit by a drunk driver as a pedestrian. and he died. Like, and he was younger than me. He was 20, I think, 21, somewhere in there. And it just reminds me, like James 4, like, what is your life? Your life's a mist. Like, we're here today, gone tomorrow. And then I think too, from a deeper perspective, well, if my life and the things that I think are so important aren't really that important, then what is? And it all points back to Christ. Yeah. It all points back to what we're called to do, which is kind of what we've been talking about this whole time. Be on mission. Like, if we're not preparing for eternity, not only ourselves, but others, and we're wasting our time and our lives.
That's good.
So for me, that's been my biggest takeaway. I think I really don't want to waste my life. I don't want to, get to heaven and be like, man, I was so focused on X, Y, Z when I could have been focused on what I was called to do. Yeah. Because you never know when your last days are. And I think even from a more personal perspective, right, I have family and friends that don't know Jesus. Why am I wasting my time on things that, aren't preparing them for eternity? Like, why am I not having conversations with them? So you never know when your time's up. You never know when God's going to call you home. And don't be afraid of that. Like, I'm not trying to, say you should fear death. It's going to happen. And obviously that's a win for the believer. But use your time on earth wisely. Prepare for eternity. I think we oftentimes just lose sight of those realities when we get apathetic spiritually, and it can be a huge danger. So for me, that's been a huge takeaway, and it's kind of grim, but I do think it's been helpful for sure. Well, Seth, as always, man, it's a pleasure being here with you. And for our listeners, if you have questions, like, we'd love to answer them. Shoot us an Instagram DM, Twitter DM, whatever is easiest for you, and look forward to seeing you next week. If you want to get involved with Uncommon Sports Group and the mission that we are on to help you navigate the sport industry as followers of Christ, apply for our academy on our website at uncommonsg.org. That's uncommonsg.org. Be sure to catch new episodes of the Uncommon podcast every Thursday at midnight Eastern Time, as well as the full video episodes on our YouTube channel. Until next time, we pray that you will strive to be uncommon by glorifying the name of God in whatever you may do. See you next week.